Population interactions. Organisms interact in various ways to form a biological community. Interaction between the two species, we can say interspecific interaction to different species. Interaction between the two different species is called interspecific interaction. We have so many. Let's take a look on them. That are interspecific interactions, mutualism and commensalism, competition, predation, parasitism, and amensalism. The multiple interactions we have here, need to know about the symbols first of all. Whenever the two individuals are living together, the particular plus, the plus indicates the benefit. Plus indicates the benefit. Minus indicates the effect. Zero, neither benefit nor effect. In that way, you have to see that particular interactions given here. Among them, the first of all, mutualism. It is an interaction between the two different species where the two individuals are getting benefited over, we can see. So according to NCRT, competition means both are going to be affected over. And predation, predation is one of the individual will get affected, we call minus, and one is benefited, that is plus. Parasitism is also the same, that one is benefited and other is affected. So predation and parasitism both are same. The predator is benefited, prey is harmed. Ikkada parasite is benefited, host is harmed. Have some differences, but general way. Commensalism. One is benefited and other is neither benefited nor affected. Amensalism. One is harmed and other is neither benefited nor affected. So that is the different kinds of interaction. Let's go into the topic to see the details of these. In predation, parasitism, commensalisms, interactive species live closely together. So in that, the first of all, we'll move with the predation here. In that we have two, predator and prey. So this interaction, we called it as plus minus. That means one is benefited, other is affected. In broad ecological context, all carnivores, herbivores are predators. About 25% insects are phytophagous. 25% insects are said to be phytophagous. If a predator overexploits its prey, then the prey might become extinct. It results in the extinction of the predator also. So therefore, the predators in nature, we can say they are prudent, they are intelligent. They don't kill all the prey at one time. So importance of the predators. Predator control prey populations. That features of the predators we are going. We'll frame a statement and that will give an example for the given statement. So predator control prey population. When certain exotic species are introduced into a geographical area, they spread fast due to the absence of natural predator in the invaded land. That means that a predator and prey is a mechanism which is different in different ecological regions. So when we introduce a particular predator or a prey into an area where there is an actual natural habit that which is not their natural habitat, when we introduce them, what happens? So let's see an example here. The prickly pear cactus is introduced into the Australia. The prickly pear cactus is not at all there. Someone introduced that. Prickly pear cactus, when it is introduced into the Australia in 1920s, that it was spreaded and the finally much spreaded over because their natural predator is not there. The prickly pear cactus natural predator is not there. So to control them, that their predator is also forced to be introduced into the Australia. Okay, so one thing you have to understand here, there is no prickly pear cactus in Australia. So what happened? Some accidentally or someone introduced that prickly pear cactus into the Australia. So to control them, the scientists, ecologists introduced cactus feeding predator also here was introduced into that country to control the prickly pear cactus. So that is the importance of predator. Predator must present to control the prey population. So one of the best example here to frame that to justify the statement. Biological control methods are based on the ability of the predator to regulate the prey population, maintain species diversity in a community by reducing the intensity of the competition among the competing prey species. Well, that is another statement here that maintains species diversity in a community. How? By reducing the intensity of the competition among the competing prey species. We have a best example. The starfish, Pisaster, is the best predator in American Pacific coast, intertidal communities of the American Pacific coast. The starfish, Pisaster, is the bigger predator there in that area. So in an experiment, when the starfish, the disaster is removed from there, when all the starfishes are removed from the enclosed intertidal area, more than 10 species of invertebrates are get extincted over that within a year. Why? How? Due to interspecific competition that species fight among themselves. They're all praise actually, the praise of our disaster. So, when the disaster is removed, these particular species they compete themselves, interspecific competition. In their competition, that they all get extincted over. So that indicates that shows that the predator maintain species diversity. In the favor of predator, we are framing all the statements. If earlier in the first statement we said that if there is no predator, that the prey population will be much increased over. Now even we are saying if the no predator, preys will fight themselves and they extinct. So we have another example here to show the disaster is a predator. By the removal of predator disaster, that 10 prey species are got extincted within a year. Next, the prey, how it protects from the side of prey. We are talking now the defenses of the prey species to lessen impact of predation, to reduce the impact of predation. What they are doing, they get camouflaged. That means background coloration. Then you see here one of the leaf insect, which is almost look like a leaf insect. Then some make themselves poisonous. Monarch butterfly, one of the example. Let's say some insects and frogs are camouflaged, cryptically colored with their matching background. Some are poisonous, like monarch butterfly. The monarch butterfly is highly distasteful to its predator due to a special chemicals on its body, and the wings will find that particular. How does the chemical is acquired? In the larval stage itself, in the caterpillar stage itself, by eating the poisonous weeds, that particular caterpillar accumulated that contents, and that contents will be stored in that chitinous layer of the wings. So that's why the predator dislike to eat that kind of a monarch butterfly. And the thorns about the plants, the prey, how do they make a defense mechanism? The most common morphological means of defense of plants like acacia, cactus. Many plants produce chemicals that make the herbivore sick, inhibit the feeding or digestion, disrupt its reproduction or kill it. We have a best example, Calotropis. You see here, this is the Calotropis plant. Might have observed over when these particular calotropes that when we find on the roadside even, no predator like goat or sheep, they don't like to eat that particular plant. Why? Because they have the highly poisonous cardiac glycosides. That's a very important question. The poisonous cardiac glycosides which present in this weed plant, the calotropis. Therefore, the cattle or goats do not eat it. Nicotine, caffeine, quinine, strychnine, opium, all these are best example for the defenses again is the grazers and browsers. And now moving on to the competition, the population interaction. The second one is the competition. Earlier in the predation, we are seeing that how does the predator is important and how the prey is trying to that protect themselves from the predator. Now we are moving to the competition. It is a process in which fitness of one species, we call R value, intrinsic rate of natural increase, is significantly lower in the presence of another species. We call it as competition. Presence of one species, species 1, that significantly lowers the presence of another species. We call it as competition. Interspecific competition is a potent force in organic evolution. How? Interspecific competition, that we usually go with an example here. Imagine a deer is running with 50 kilometers per hour speed. So who is their competitor? Who is their prey? Tiger. So if tiger starts with only 45 kilometers per hour, what happens? Can it pick the deer? Can it hunt the deer? No. That's why it has to increase up to 50 kilometers. So that means it is improvised. Then what deer should do? Those deers the who increased their speed up to 55 kilometers per hour can escape from the tiger. That we call natural selection. That naturally selected deer is with running with 55 kilometers. Or a deer who is running with 55 kilometers, we say that is naturally selected in in the nature. Okay. What tiger should do? Tiger should go with 55 kilometers to get the deer. So they improvise and followed by that prey improvise, and when the to get the prey, the predator is also need to be improvised. So now the justification came, I think so. Interspecific competition is a potent force in organic evolution. Because of this competition only, the organisms are going to that improvising in the millions of years of period of time. When you compare a tiger some 10 million years back and present, definitely that is much improvised. Why? Because of their prey, because prey is improvising, so followed by predator also need to be improvised. So competition occurs when closely related species compete for the same limited resources. We call intraspecific competition. That means the two species, if they are want to get the same food and same accommodation, they fight themselves each other. Who will win? Those who win, we call it as nature selected them, natural selection. So that we have the much importance, the competition is having much importance in the evolutionary aspect, we can say. So unrelated species can also compete for the resource. These are exceptional things here which we are discussing with an example. Unrelated species can also compete for the resource. Flamingos and fishes in some shallow South American lakes compete for zooplankton. This is one of the best example for this. Competition occurs in abundant resources also. We call it as interference competition. The feeding efficiency of one species reduced due to the interfering and inhibitory presence of other species. Even if resources are abundant, even that particular, they feel so little bit irritating, interfering or inhibitory presence of other species. Even resources are abundant, if anything happened, competition, that kind of competition we say interference competition. Okay. Next, very important things, these are all here. We used to get a question from here. Abingdon tortoise. With an example, you can learn the tissues here. Abingdon tortoise in Galapagos Islands became extinct within a decade after goats were introduced on the island due to greater browsing efficiency of the competition. The greater browsing efficiency of the goats that got the Abingdon tortoise in Galapagos Islands is get extincted. Or what do you call this principle? When the two species are competing themselves, we call this principle as Gauss principle. Okay, so that means when the two species, when one species affect the other species for extinction, what do you call it as? That competitive exclusion. This feature can be called as competitive exclusion. That the principle is said to be that Gauss principle. We call it as competitive exclusion. One of the best example for competitive exclusion, Abingdon tortoise in Galapagos Island became extinct within a decade after goats were introduced on the island due to greater browsing efficiency of the goats. They occupied, they dominated, and the Abingdon tortoise get extincted. The next feature is competitive release. It's there in the name. Release. What it mean? A species restricted to a small geographical area due to the presence of competitively superior species expands its distributional range when the competing species is experimentally removed. Let's talk about this with the best example we have. The Belanus is a rock barnacle. We use it to say the Belanus is the bigger one. Okay, next, Chathalamus are said to be the smaller barnacles, Chathalamus. So, what we are saying here, by experimentally, if you remove the Belanus, the Chathalamus species number is going to be increased over. So, this is called release. Release of what? Release of domination of Belanus from that Chathalamus. So, that means if you remove the Belanus, the Chathalamus species will be increased. So, you have to remember that Belanus is a bigger barnacle, Chathalamus is a smaller one. So when does they have flourished over? When you remove the Belanus. What do you call it as? Competitive release. You can learn this only through examples. A species restricted to a small geographical area due to the presence of competitively superior species. Who is the competitively superior species? Belanus. Expands its distributional range when the competing species is experimentally removed. Whom we removed? Belanus. Who get flourished then? Chathalamus. That to be remembered. Okay. Next, that this experiment actually done by Carnell field experiments, we use it to say, showed that on the rocky sea coast of Scotland, the larger competitively superior barnacle Belanus dominates the intertidal area and excludes the smaller barnacle Chathalamus from that zone. So moving on, the Gauss competitive exclusion principle to closely related species competing for the same resources, they cannot coexist indefinitely, and the competitively inferior one will be eliminated. So we are taking the example itself now only, that Abingdon tortoise, which is living in the Galapagos Island, after introducing goats, the Abingdon tortoise got extincted over. Okay, so that is one of the best example for Gauss competitive exclusion principle. This may be true in limited resources, but not otherwise. That in our case, the grass is a source of food for both Abingdon tortoise and the goats who are introduced here. So that's why the food is limited. So that's why what happened, that when the goats are introduced, they ate all, and that makes no food for Abingdon tortoise. So very, very important the principle to be remembered, the Gauss principle. So sometimes we have special features. Species facing competition may evolve mechanisms that promote coexistence rather than exclusion. What do you call this as? Resource partitioning. It's a different thing. It's a special thing. Don't compare with the first point with the second point. We said already this one is over. This is called competitive exclusion. Sometimes we are saying the species who are facing competition may evolve the mechanism that promote coexistence. They live together. They live together. What do you call it as? Resource partitioning. Warbler is the scientist who explained about the resource partitioning. In the warblers, the resource partitioning is much explained here. If the two species compete for the same resource, they could avoid competition by choosing the different times for feeding or different foraging patterns. You can see that in the warblers, it was much explained. The MacArthur is a scientist who showed this particular resource partitioning in case of warblers, that showed that 5 closely related species of warblers living on the same tree were able to avoid competition. They are not fighting themselves each other. They are not fighting themselves each other. That were able to avoid competition and coexist due to behavioral differences in their foraging activities. This is far against to the competitive exclusion principle, that to be remembered over. Next, the parasitism, that we know the very well. We have a separate chapter for that. Many parasites are host specific. They can parasitize only a single host species. They tend to co-evolve. And if the host evolves, special mechanism, again is the parasite. The parasite has to evolve the mechanism to counteract them. in order to be successful with the same host species. We can understand Plasmodium is living in human being means when human that changes his pattern, Plasmodium is also changed. So that's why it is surviving. That you have to understand. Those parasites are still making effects on human being. That means here parasite is changed when human is changed. In that way, you have to understand. There are so many adaptations are there in parasite. Loss of sense organ, presence of adhesive organs or suckers to cling onto the host, loss of digestive system, the high reproductive capacity. So loss of sense organs. We don't. Parasite doesn't need any sense organ. Presence of adhesive organs or suckers. We know that tapeworm is having 4 suckers. In the leeches we have sucker. And ectoparasite on the gills of fishes will find lamprey, petromyzon. You see the suckers in them. And it's our leech. They have 2 suckers, oral sucker and ventral sucker. Fasciola hepatica is having 2 suckers. Fasciola hepatica, liver fluke, we use it to say. And our tapeworm Taenia solium is having hooks and suckers. Hooks and suckers are present. All these are going to be adaptations of the parasite here. Then parasite doesn't have digestive system. We have a best example, tapeworm. And all parasites are having reproductive, high reproductive ability that we'll discuss in biology and human welfare chapter. Here you can see the life cycles of parasites are often complex. Here we have an example, human liver fluke that depends on 2 intermediate hosts, a snail and a fish, to complete its life cycle. Malarial parasite, Plasmodium, needs a mosquito to spread to other hosts, biological vector we use it to say. Parasites harm the host. They may reduce the survival, population density, growth, and reproduction of the host. They may make the host physically weak and more vulnerable to predation. So types of parasites. The parasites live outside the body. We call them as ectoparasite. We have an example. The lice on human, ticks and dogs, and ectoparasitic copy parts on in marine fishes, Cuscuta plant and hedge plants. So Cuscuta is the parasite here. Cuscuta and hedge, you can see on the screen diagram. Cuscuta has no chlorophyll actually and leaves. It derives the nutrition from the host plant itself. They don't do any photosynthesis. And we know the female mosquito is not considered as a parasite because it needs blood only for reproduction, not as a food. Female mosquito only sucks the blood. That is for to lay the eggs. There is a certain protein present in the human blood helpful for the uh, egg production in case of female Anopheles mosquito. In that context, we use it to say female mosquito is not parasite because it depends on the human being, not for food. It is depends on the human being for their production of eggs. Endoparasites, parasites that live inside the host body at different sites, we call endoparasite. They live in liver, kidney, lungs, RBC. So many parasites we have. We learned in biology and human welfare. The life cycles of endoparasites are more complex. They have simple morphological and anatomical features and high reproductive potentiality. The special phenomena we learn here, brood parasitism. Brood parasitism in birds. Here the parasitic birds lays eggs in the nest of its host and let the host to incubate them. We have a best example for this. So what's that? Cuckoo and quail. Let me complete this. During the course of evolution, eggs of the parasitic bird have evolved to resemble the host egg in size and color to reduce the chances of the host bird detecting them foreign eggs and ejecting them from the nest. That cuckoo and crow is the one the best example here. That who is the parasite in this case? Cuckoo. What it will do? It lay eggs in the crow nest. Crow unknowingly makes the incubate that particular eggs. So that is called brood parasitism. Brooding, we know that incubating the eggs we call brooding. So brood parasitism, a special kind of parasitism we can say. Moving on, commensalism. So orchids growing as epiphyte and mango branch. Examples are very important here. On screen, you can see the example visual also. So orchids growing on as epiphytes and mango branches is one of the best example here for commensalism. The barnacles growing on the whale, back of the whale, you can see here. The barnacles are sedentary organisms. So then nothing happens to the whale. So who is plus here? Barnacle is plus and whale is 0. Okay, the orchid growing as epiphyte on a mango branch, orchid is place, that means get benefit, and mango tree is 0. Next, the cattle egret, grazing cattle. You can see here when the particular grazing cattle is grazing, eating the food, grass, that when it is moving, when it creates disturbance in the grass, some insects will get raised up in that area. That's why our cattle egret is waiting for that. So that means when the grass is eaten by this cattle, that insects which are there, so they'll come out. So that for that insects, these cattle egret is waiting. You see this? Okay, so this is 0. Sorry, this is plus. Nothing happens to the cattle. That they go in their own way. As the cattle move, the vegetation insects comes out. Otherwise, it is difficult for the egrets to find and catch them insects. So that we call it as commensalism. In all these cases, what you can see, one is benefited, other is affected. Only thing you have to remember, who is benefiting and who is not affecting, neither benefit nor affected. And here one more, that is sea anemone and clownfish. The stinging tentacles of the sea anemone. We know that sea anemones are having nidoblast cells. So our clownfish is moving in between them. That is for protection from the fish to the from the predator. So this is 0 sea anemone and our fish is getting benefit. What do you call it as commensalism? So finally, in the mutualism, we are going here. Examples are very important. Lichens or lichens, we usually say. It's a mutualistic relationship between a fungus and photosynthesizing algae or cyanobacteria. So you can see on the screen, they grew on the trees. Mycorrhizae, association between the fungi and the roots of higher plants. The fungi help the plant in the absorption of essential nutrient from the soil, while the plant provide the fungi with carbohydrate. Both are benefited. We call it as mutualism. In that also, algal partner and fungal partner. So they both get benefited. Here it doesn't come in mutualism actually, that issue we are going to learn now, but it was given in text. So just a little bit different we have to say here. The fig species is pollinated only by its partner wasp species and no other species. The female wasp pollinates the fig inflorescence while searching for suitable egg-laying sites in fruits. The fig offers the wasp some developing seeds as a food for wasp larvae. So that is a mutual benefit. In some other context, we can say both are getting benefited over. And orchid and bee. So orchids show diversity of floral patterns. They attract the right pollinator insect, like bees and bumblebees, to ensure pollination. Not all orchids offer rewards. What they do then? What they do then? You see here in the diagram. We call it as sexual deceit. Sexual deceit of ovaries. We can't say perfectly mutualism. That you can see the flower itself modified like female bee. So one petal of its flower resembles a female bee in size, color, and markings. So male bee feeling like so that is a female bee that pseudocopulates with the flower and is dusted with pollen. When this bee pseudocopulate with another flower, it transfers the pollen into it. Okay, so that what you call sexual deceit. If the female bee's color pattern change slightly during evolution, the pollination success will be reduced unless the orchid flower co-evolves to maintain the resemblance of its petal to the female bee. That means we know the species are dynamic. In case over a period of time, if the flower doesn't look like this petal, it doesn't look like the female bee, male bee may not be attracted over. So that means if the female bee color pattern is changed, here the petal also need to be changed here. Interestingly, you can see the survival of these plants till the time means what we can understand. We can understand that still that the co-evolution is happening. We call this as co-evolution. We say this particular pattern is called co-evolution. Bee is changing color patterns, the flower is also changing the color patterns. So that's a very interesting thing here. Okay, so we're not ending up here. That examples are very, very important in this particular case. That's why the same pattern will learn in other angle.